The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their special chairs, each designed for their unique bodies. Some breathed different gases, others needed special gravity fields, but they all came together for one purpose: to discuss the mysteries of space. Today's meeting was different. Dr. Kessatar, a tall, blue-skinned Vorthon with 4 arms, stood at the center podium. Her research had brought them all here. She looked nervous as dozens of alien eyes focused on her. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice translated into many languages at once. "I want to talk about the humans." A low rumble went through the crowd. The Zephyrians, ancient bird-like creatures with silver feathers, clicked their beaks in annoyance. The bulky Morvacs shifted their heavy bodies, making their chairs creak. Everyone knew about the humans, and most wished they could forget. 300 years ago, humanity had taken their first steps into space. They were young, aggressive, and stubborn. Their ships were slow and loud, powered by simple fusion engines that left trails across the stars. They refused to follow galactic trade rules. They asked too many questions. They wanted to do things their own way. Then, suddenly, they went silent. The last human transmission was received on galactic date 2387.4. Dr. Kessatar continued, pulling up a hologram of their solar system. Earth stopped all communications. Their space stations went dark. Their ships disappeared from our sensors. Ambassador Threlgan, an elegant Zephyrian with golden eyes, spoke up. "We all know this story. Doctor, the humans destroyed themselves. It happens to many young species. They develop weapons faster than wisdom." Murmurs of agreement filled the hall. It was a common story across the galaxy. Young civilizations would reach for the stars, then burn themselves out in wars or accidents. The humans had seemed especially likely to fail. They fought among themselves constantly and showed little respect for older, wiser species. "But that's not what happened," Dr. Kessatar said firmly. She waved her hand, and the hologram changed. Now it showed the Sol system as it looked today. "Look at these readings." The image revealed something strange. Around Earth and its neighboring planets, space itself seemed twisted. Gravity moved in impossible patterns. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared without explanation. Massive objects existed where none should be. "These are gravitational anomalies," she explained. "Something huge is being built in human space, something that requires technology far beyond what they had 3 centuries ago." A Borgathi representative, a creature that looked like living rock, rumbled through his translator. "Impossible. We monitor all technological development in this sector. No one could advance so far without our knowledge, unless they did it in complete silence," Dr. Kessatar replied, "unless they went into hiding on purpose." The crowd grew restless. Some delegates whispered to their assistants. Others checked their own sensors, trying to confirm her data. The readings were real, but they made no sense. Commander Vexthul of the Catharan Empire stood up. He was 7 feet tall, with gray skin and sharp teeth. His people were warriors, and they had conquered many worlds. "Even if the humans survived," he said with a sneer, "what could they accomplish? They were primitive, weak. They had no real technology." "That's what worries me," Dr. Kessatar said quietly. She changed the hologram again. This time it showed human history, their wars, their struggles, their rapid development. In just a few thousand years, they had gone from using stone tools to building spaceships. No other species had developed so quickly. "Humans learn fast," she continued. "They adapt to anything. When they face a problem they cannot solve, they find a new way to think about it. What if their silence was not destruction but transformation?" The ancient Zephyrian ambassador laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "You give them too much credit, young doctor. 300 years is nothing. Even if they survived, they would still be crawling around their little planet, fighting over resources." But Dr. Kessatar was not finished. She showed them more data, energy patterns that defied known physics, materials that bent light in impossible ways, signals that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Something is coming," she warned. "The gravitational distortions are moving toward the edge of human space. Whatever they have been building, it's ready to move." The hall fell silent. Even the skeptics looked worried. The readings were clear. Something massive was happening in the Sol system. Something that required power sources the galaxy had never seen before. Secretary General Mordan, leader of the Galactic Council, raised his hand for silence. He was old even by Zephyrian standards, his silver feathers now white with age. He had been alive when the humans first appeared, and he remembered their strange ways. "Dr. Kessatar," he said slowly, "what exactly are you asking us to do? The humans chose isolation. If they wish to remain hidden, that is their right." "I'm asking us to prepare," she replied. "The humans I studied were not content to stay in one place. They always wanted to explore, to expand, to learn. If they have been silent for 300 years, building something in secret, they will not stay hidden much longer." A young Morvac delegate spoke up. "Even if you're right, what threat could they pose? We have thousands of worlds, billions of citizens. Technology developed over millions of years. They are just one species on one planet." Dr. Kessatar's four arms moved in a gesture of uncertainty. "That's what scares me most. We think we know what humans can do because we knew them 3 centuries ago. But what if we were wrong? What if we only saw the beginning of what they could become?" She pulled up one final image, a graph showing the rate of human development. Compared to other species, the line climbed steadily, then shot straight up at an impossible angle. Every species in this galaxy took millions of years to develop spaceflight. Humans did it in 10,000. Every species took thousands of years to build their first starships. Humans did it in decades. If they have been working in secret for 300 years with their rate of development, she didn't need to finish. The numbers spoke for themselves. If humans could advance that quickly with primitive technology, what could they do with 3 centuries of focused effort? The meeting continued for hours, but no decisions were made. Some delegates wanted to send scouts to investigate. Others insisted on leaving the humans alone. A few suggested preparing military forces just in case. In the end, they chose to wait and watch. It was the cautious choice, the safe choice. After all, what could one isolated species do against the combined might of the galaxy? Dr. Kessatar gathered her data and left the Great Hall. She had done her job. She had warned them. Whether they listened or not was out of her hands. But as she walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime, she could not shake the feeling that they were all about to learn a very important lesson. In the depths of space, beyond the reach of their sensors, something stirred. The silence was about to end, and the galaxy would never be the same. 300 years of preparation were nearly complete. Humanity was ready to return to the stars, and they were bringing gifts that would change everything. The question was not whether they would return, but whether the galaxy was ready for what they had become. The alarm started screaming at 3 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Captain Jorik of the patrol ship Star's Edge was torn from sleep by the urgent wail of the proximity alerts. He rolled out of his bunk and stumbled to the bridge, his scaled skin still bearing the marks of his pillow. As a Draconian, he needed his rest, but duty called. "Report!" he barked as he entered the command center. His second officer, a nervous Vorthan named Telex, pointed at the main screen with 2 of her 4 arms. "Captain, you need to see this. Something just appeared at the edge of our sensor range." Jorik looked at the display and felt his blood run cold. Where empty space had been moments before, massive shapes now hung in the darkness. Ships. But, unlike any ships he had ever seen, they were enormous, easily 10 times larger than the biggest Council dreadnoughts. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and they moved without visible engines or energy trails. "How many?" he asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. 17 confirmed contacts, sir. Possibly more. Our sensors are having trouble getting clear readings." That was impossible. Council sensors could detect a single fighter from 3 star systems away. These ships were either using technology beyond galactic understanding, or they existed partially, outside normal space. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's on all frequencies at once, in every language in our database." "Put it through," Jorik ordered, settling into his command chair. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, confident, and completely human. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Prometheus. We represent the human species, returning to galactic space after a period of necessary isolation. Please relay our message to the Galactic Council. Humanity requests formal diplomatic contact. Jorek's jaw dropped. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at him. Humans? The primitive species that had vanished 3 centuries ago? It was impossible. But the evidence hung before them in space. 17 impossibly advanced starships that had appeared from nowhere. "This is Captain Jorek of the Galactic Patrol," he responded, trying to keep his voice steady. You've been gone for 300 years. We thought you were extinct." A new voice came through the speakers, female, amused. "Extinct? No, Captain, we've been busy. We had some growing up to do." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the patrol ship. She looked human, but something was different. Her eyes held depths that hadn't been there centuries ago, and when she moved, it was with a fluid grace that seemed to defy physics. Around her, the bridge hummed with activity, but there were no computer terminals, no physical controls. Instead, her crew seemed to interact directly with the ship's systems through thought alone. Information flowed between them like water, shared instantly and perfectly. "Analysis complete," reported her tactical officer without speaking aloud. The words formed directly in Sarah's mind. "Council technology approximately 300 years, behind projected advancement curves. No immediate threat." Sarah nodded and turned her attention back to the patrol captain. Poor creature looked terrified. She remembered when humans had looked at galactic species the same way, awed by their advanced technology and ancient civilizations. How the tables had turned. "Captain Jorek," she said aloud, "please inform your superiors that we'll be arriving at Nexus Prime in 72 hours. We have much to discuss." "Arriving?" Jorek stammered. "But that's impossible. Nexus Prime is 6 days away at maximum hyperspace velocity." Sarah smiled, and for a moment her form seemed to flicker, as if she existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Captain, you're thinking in terms of old physics. We've learned a few new tricks. On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called as word of humanity's return spread through the station, the Great Hall filled with representatives from dozens of species, all talking at once. Fear, curiosity, and disbelief mixed in the air like smoke. Dr. Kessatar sat in the gallery, watching the chaos unfold. She should have felt vindicated. Her warnings had been proven correct. Instead, she felt only dread. The ships that had appeared were beyond anything she had imagined. If humanity had advanced this far, what did they want? Secretary General Mordan called for order, his ancient voice carrying across the hall. "Representatives, please. We must approach this situation calmly. Yes, the humans have returned. Yes, their technology appears to be advanced. But they have requested diplomatic contact, not declared war." Commander Vexthul of the Catharan Empire stood up, his gray skin flushed with anger. "They appear from nowhere with ships that dwarf our fleets, and you want to talk? This is a clear threat to galactic security." "Is it?" asked Ambassador Threlgan. The elegant Zephyrian looked troubled. "Our analysts have reviewed the encounter. The human ships made no aggressive moves. They could have destroyed Captain Jorek's vessel without effort, but they chose to communicate instead." "Because they're not ready to fight us all yet," Vexthul snarled. "This is reconnaissance. They're studying our defenses." Dr. Kestar stood up from her seat. "May I speak?" The hall fell silent. Everyone knew she had predicted this moment. "Commander Vexthul raises valid concerns," she began. "But I think we're missing something important. These humans didn't sneak back into our space. They announced themselves. They asked for diplomatic contact. If they wanted to attack us, why reveal themselves at all?" "Because they're arrogant," the Catharan replied. "They think they're superior now." "Maybe they are," Dr. Kessatar said quietly. The words hit the assembly like a physical blow. No one spoke for long moments. The idea that humanity, primitive, violent humanity, could have surpassed galactic civilization was almost too much to accept, but the evidence was right there on their sensors. 17 ships that used technology beyond their understanding. Ships that had appeared from empty space without using any known form of faster-than-light travel. Ships that were heading for Nexus Prime at speeds that defied physics, as if summoned. By their thoughts, the communications array activated. The same calm voice they had heard from Captain Jorek's report filled the Great Hall. Galactic Council, this is Captain Sarah Chen speaking. We are currently 6 hours from Nexus Prime. We request permission to dock and begin formal negotiations for humanity's return to galactic civilization. 6 hours? But they had been 18 hours away when the patrol ship encountered them. Even at maximum hyperspace velocity, it should take days to travel that distance. Secretary General Mordan stepped forward to respond. Captain Chen, we welcome humanity's return. However, we must ask about your means of propulsion. Our calculations suggest you are traveling faster than our technology can explain. Sarah's laugh carried warmth and just a hint of superiority. Secretary General, we've had 300 years to think about the problems of space travel. We found better solutions. What kind of solutions? Dr. Kessatar called out before she could stop herself. The kind that make distance optional, Sarah replied. But we'd prefer to discuss the details in person. We have much to share with our galactic neighbors. The transmission ended, leaving the hall in stunned silence. Outside, through the great windows of Nexus Prime, stars began to shift and bend. Space itself twisted like fabric, and through the distortion came shapes that hurt to look at directly. Humanity had returned, and they had brought the impossible with them. Dr. Kessatar watched the approaching fleet and whispered a prayer to whatever. Gods might be listening. She had warned the galaxy that something was coming. She had been right about that. She just hoped she had been wrong about everything else. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime like she owned the place. Her footsteps made no sound on the metal floors, and security cameras seemed to look right through her. Guards stationed at every checkpoint simply stepped aside, as if moving out of her way was the most natural thing in the world. Behind her walked two figures that made even veteran security officers nervous. They wore no armor that anyone could identify, yet they seemed protected by something that bent light around them. Their faces were human, but their eyes held depths that suggested they saw far more than the visible spectrum. Dr. Kessatar watched from a balcony overlooking the main corridor. She had been studying humans for years, but these three individuals confused all her research. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. When one turned to examine a wall display, the others automatically adjusted their positions to maintain optimal coverage of all approaches. Fascinating, she whispered to herself. They're networked. The implications sent chills down her spine. If humans could share thoughts and perceptions in real time, they would be nearly impossible to surprise or ambush. No wonder their ships had appeared from nowhere. They had probably been planning this approach for decades, sharing knowledge and strategies across their entire species. In the Great Assembly Hall, over 200 representatives from across the galaxy waited. Some sat in their usual seats, others stood near emergency exits. Everyone had heard the reports from the docking bay. The human shuttle had simply passed through the station's defensive shields as if they weren't there. No weapons had been fired. No alarms triggered. The shields had simply ignored the human vessel. Secretary General Mordan called for order as Ambassador Vasquez entered the chamber. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and silver hair that seemed to move independently of any air current. Her clothes looked simple, but they shifted color and texture as she walked, adapting to the lighting and environment around her. Honorable representatives, Mordan began. I present Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the human species. She comes to us after 3 centuries of isolation. Elena smiled and walked to the center podium without invitation. As she passed the security barrier, a force field that had stopped armed assassins, she simply reached through it and picked up the ceremonial crystal of greeting. The barrier didn't flicker. It acted as if she wasn't there at all. Every delegate in the hall leaned forward. That barrier was made from technology developed by the ancient Zephyrians over 10,000 years of research. Nothing could pass through it without proper authorization codes. Thank you for this warm welcome, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the hall without amplification. Humanity is pleased to return to galactic civilization. Commander Vex Thul of the Kitharan Empire stood up, his hand moving to his sidearm. How did you do that? How did you pass through our defenses? Elena turned to look at him, and for a moment her eyes seemed to glow with inner light. Commander, Your defenses are designed to stop matter and energy moving through normal space. We've learned to move through other dimensions as well. That's impossible, declared Professor Yithmar of the Helix Confederation. The laws of physics don't allow for dimensional travel. The laws of physics as you understand them, Elena corrected gently. We've had 3 centuries to explore alternatives. She gestured, and the air above her filled with images, star charts, mathematical equations, and diagrams that hurt to look at directly. When humanity first encountered galactic civilization, we were told we were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be trusted, so we decided to change. The images shifted, showing human cities floating in space, connected by structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships moved between them not through hyperspace, but by folding reality itself. We discovered that consciousness is not limited to biological brains, Elena continued. We learned to network our minds across interstellar distances. A human on Earth can share thoughts with a human in the Centauri system as easily as you might speak to someone. In the next room, Dr. Kessatar felt her hearts racing. Networked consciousness would explain everything, how human ships coordinated so perfectly, how they seemed to anticipate every move, how they shared knowledge instantly across their entire species. But that was just the beginning, Elena said. And the images changed again. Now they showed humans who looked like living energy, beings who could reshape their bodies at will, individuals who existed simultaneously in multiple locations. We transcended the limitations of biological evolution. We became something new, still human, but more than human. We exist partially outside normal space-time, which allows us to bend certain rules. She demonstrated by reaching across the hall without moving from the podium. Her arm stretched impossibly far, passing through several representatives without harming them, to pick up a data pad from Ambassador Threlgan's desk. The elegant Zephyrian squawked in surprise and fell backward off her perch. "We're not showing off," Elena said apologetically as her arm returned to normal length. "We're trying to help you understand. Humanity has changed in ways that your current understanding of reality cannot fully explain." "This is madness," muttered the Borgathi representative. "Beings cannot exist outside normal physics." "Can't they?" Elena asked. She gestured to her escorts, who had been standing motionless near the entrance. Without any visible signal, they suddenly appeared next to her at the podium, then returned to their original position so quickly that many delegates missed the movement entirely. "We call it quantum consciousness," she explained. "The ability to exist in multiple states simultaneously until observation forces us to choose one reality. It's taken us 300 years to master, but it has remarkable advantages." The hall erupted in excited chatter. Representatives spoke rapidly to their assistants, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The implications were staggering. If humans could exist in multiple realities at once, they would be nearly impossible to fight or contain. Secretary General Mordan raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Vasquez, why are you sharing this information with us? Surely such capabilities would be closely guarded secrets." Elena's expression grew serious. "Because isolation nearly destroyed us, Secretary General. We became so focused on transcending our limitations that we almost forgot what we were transcending from. We need connection to other species, other ways of thinking. We're offering to share our discoveries with the galaxy." The offer sent shockwaves through the assembly. Technology that allowed beings to exist outside normal physics, the ability to network consciousness across interstellar distances, the knowledge to fold space and time itself. "What do you want in return?" asked Ambassador Threlgan, who had regained her composure. "Partnership," Elena replied simply. "Humanity spent 3 centuries learning to transcend our biological and technological limitations. But we discovered something important. Intelligence without wisdom is dangerous. Power without purpose is meaningless. You have wisdom we lack. You have perspectives shaped by millions of years of diverse evolution. We need that." Commander Vex Thul stepped forward, his warrior instincts overriding his fear. "And if we refuse? What happens to species that don't want to partner with transcended humans?" Elena looked sad for a moment. "Nothing, Commander. We learned long ago that forced evolution never works. Each species must choose their own path. We're simply offering to walk alongside those who are interested. But her escort stepped forward, slightly, and for just an instant, the temperature in the hall dropped several degrees. Without speaking, without making any threatening gestures, they made it clear that humanity's patience had limits. The message was received. Humanity had returned, more powerful than anyone had imagined. They were offering partnership, but they were prepared for other responses as well. Dr. Kessatar watched from the balcony and realized that her worst fears had been too small. She had worried that humanity might have advanced beyond galactic civilization. She had been right about that. What she hadn't expected was that they might have advanced beyond physical reality itself. The challenge came 3 days after humanity's diplomatic presentation. Commander Vexthul of the Catharan Empire stood before the Galactic Council, his gray skin flushed with anger and his sharp teeth bared in a warrior's grimace. "I invoke the right of testing," he declared, his voice echoing through the great hall. "These humans make claims that sound like fairy tales. They show us tricks that could be illusions. The Catharan Empire demands proof of their capabilities in honest combat." The hall fell silent. The right of testing was ancient galactic law, older than most civilizations. Any species claiming significant military advancement could be challenged to demonstrate their abilities in controlled warfare. It had not been invoked in over 1,000 years. Secretary General Mordan looked uncomfortable. "Commander, the humans have offered partnership, not conquest. Perhaps such a demonstration is unnecessary." "Is it?" Vexathul snarled. "They claim to exist outside normal physics. They say they can bend space and time. These are the claims of gods, not mortals. If they are truly as powerful as they pretend, let them prove it." Ambassador Elena Vasquez had been listening calmly from her seat. Now she stood, her movement as fluid as water. "The Catharan Empire wishes a demonstration of human capabilities?" "Yes," Vexthul replied. "In the shattered fields, combat conditions. Winner takes all." Elena smiled, and for a moment the air around her seemed to shimmer. "Very well, but we should make this interesting. Any species that wishes to test human capabilities is welcome to join the Catharan fleet. The more the merrier." The challenge rippled through the council chamber like a physical wave. Species that had remained neutral began whispering among themselves. The shattered fields were a desolate system filled with asteroid debris and spatial anomalies. They were used for the most dangerous military exercises because nothing of value could be destroyed there. Within hours, word had spread across the galaxy. 7 species answered the call to test humanity's claims. The Catharan Empire brought their finest dreadnoughts. The Morvac Collective sent their legendary swarm fighters. The Borgathi contributed their massive fortress ships. The Helix Confederation provided their reality-warping vessels. Even some smaller species sent their best warships, eager to see if the returned humans were truly as advanced as they claimed. Dr. Kessatar watched the preparations from her laboratory aboard Nexus Prime. Through her instruments, she tracked over 300 alien warships gathering in the shattered fields. It was the largest fleet assembled in galactic history, enough firepower to reduce entire worlds to dust. Against this armada, humanity was sending 3 ships. The human fleet arrived exactly on schedule, appearing from folded space in a display of light that briefly outshone the system's dying star. The ships were even larger than the ones that had first appeared at Nexus Prime, but their hulls seemed less solid, more like controlled energy than manufactured matter. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the enemy. Fleet formed battle lines through sensors that existed partially outside normal time. She could see not just where the enemy ships were, but where they would be, what they were planning, what their crews were thinking. "Analysis complete," her tactical officer reported through their shared consciousness. "Standard galactic doctrine. They plan to surround us and concentrate fire. Estimated time to complete encirclement, 14 minutes. "Defensive capabilities?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Their weapons operate within normal physics. Plasma bolts, missile systems, energy beams. Nothing that can affect matter existing in quantum superposition." Sarah nodded and opened a channel to the alien fleet. "This is Captain Chen of the Prometheus. Are you ready to begin?" Commander Vexthul's voice crackled with anticipation. "We are ready, human." Try not to disappoint us. The battle began with a massive coordinated strike from the alien fleet. 300 warships opened fire simultaneously, creating a web of destructive energy that would have vaporized anything built with conventional technology. The space around the human ships lit up like a newborn star. When the light faded, the 3 human vessels hung in space unchanged. The attack had passed through them like light through glass. "Impossible!" Vexthul roared. "Fire again! All weapons! Maximum power!" The second barrage was even more intense. Weapons that could crack moons focused their fury on 3 targets that seemed to mock the laws of physics by simply existing, where the energy beams tried to occupy the same space. Again, the humans emerged unharmed. "Your turn, Captain Sarah," Chen said calmly. What happened next challenged the sanity of every witness. The human ships didn't move in any conventional sense. Instead, they seemed to step sideways out of reality, appearing instantly among the alien formations. But they didn't attack with weapons. The Prometheus approached a Catharan dreadnought and simply touched it. Where the 2 hulls made contact, waves of transformation spread across the alien vessel. Its crew suddenly found themselves working to support the human ship instead of fighting it. Not through mind control or coercion, they simply realized that cooperation made more sense than conflict. Within minutes, half the Catharan fleet had joined the human side. Their crews worked with perfect efficiency, as if they had been part of the human collective all along. The Morvac swarm fighters tried to overwhelm the second human ship through sheer numbers. Thousands of small, fast vessels converged like angry insects. The human ship responded by existing in multiple locations simultaneously. The fighters found themselves attacking empty space while their target appeared behind them, gently disabling their weapons with surgical precision. But the real demonstration came when a human soldier became separated from her ship during the battle. Lieutenant Maria Santos found herself aboard a Borgathi fortress ship, surrounded by 20 armed aliens in a corridor built for creatures 3 times her size. The Borgathi were living rocks, each one weighing several tons and armed with weapons that could punch through starship armor. They moved to surround the small human, confident that one fragile biological form could not threaten them. They were wrong. Maria moved like liquid lightning, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to process the combat situation at superhuman speeds. As the first Borgathi raised his weapon, she was already moving. Her body began to adapt to the threat, growing natural armor where she anticipated being struck, developing new sensory organs to track movement in the corridor's odd lighting. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 20 unconscious Borgathi lay scattered across the deck, and Maria stood calmly in the center, checking her equipment for damage. She had not killed any of them. She had simply rendered them unable to continue fighting through. Precise application of force. Combat complete, she reported to her ship. Requesting retrieval. She flickered out of existence and reappeared on the Prometheus bridge, leaving behind only the lingering question of how one human had defeated an entire squad of the galaxy's most feared warriors. Across the battlefield, the alien fleet was in chaos. Ship after ship had joined the human side or found their weapons mysteriously non-functional. The humans weren't destroying their enemies. They were converting them, demonstrating a form of warfare that made traditional concepts of victory and defeat meaningless. Commander Vexthul watched his mighty fleet transformed into willing allies, of the species he had meant to test. His own ship's crew was looking at him with new understanding, gently suggesting that perhaps cooperation would be more productive than continued hostility. "How?" he asked through the communication channel, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and defeat. "How is this possible?" Captain Sarah Chen's response was patient, almost educational. "Commander, you were thinking in terms of force against force, weapon against weapon. We've learned to think in terms of possibility against limitation. Your weapons can only destroy what exists in normal space. Your tactics assume your enemies will follow the same physical laws you do. Your strategies depend on beings acting as separate individuals instead of networked consciousness." The demonstration was over. Humanity had proven their capabilities without firing a single shot in anger. They had faced the combined might of 7 galactic civilizations and treated it as a learning exercise. More importantly, they had shown that their power came not from superior weapons, but from a fundamental transformation of what it meant to exist as intelligent beings. The galaxy was about to learn what 3 centuries of focused human evolution could accomplish. 6 months after the demonstration in the shattered fields, the galaxy was transforming in ways no one could have predicted. Dr. Kessatar stood in her new laboratory aboard a space station that existed partially in folded reality, watching through dimensional windows, as impossible things became routine. The laboratory itself was a gift from humanity, a structure that occupied the same physical coordinates as her old research facility, but extended into dimensions that conventional physics said couldn't exist. She could store equipment in spaces larger than the station itself, conduct experiments that would have been impossible under normal physical laws, and collaborate with researchers across the galaxy through consciousness-sharing networks. Still, getting used to it? Asked a familiar voice behind her. Dr. Kessatar turned to see Ambassador Elena Vasquez materializing from thin air. The human woman looked the same as she had 6 months ago, but her presence felt more complete somehow, as if she existed more fully in this reality than most beings. The technology, yes, Dr. Kessatar replied, gesturing to her expanded laboratory. The implications? I'm not sure anyone will ever get used to those. Elena smiled and walked to the observation window, looking out at the transformed galaxy beyond. Nexus Prime had become the center of a new kind of civilization. Ships from dozens of species moved through space-folding corridors that reduced travel times from weeks to minutes. Worlds that had been isolated by distance were now neighbors. Species that had never met were forming partnerships across impossible gulfs. We never intended for change to happen this quickly, Elena admitted. We thought it would take decades for other species to adapt our technology. Instead, you've surprised us with how eager you are to transcend your old limitations. Dr. Kessatar nodded, remembering her own transformation. 3 months ago, human technicians had offered to expand her consciousness beyond the boundaries of her single brain. The process had been terrifying and wonderful. Suddenly she could think with the processing power of a supercomputer while maintaining her individual personality and memories. The Zephyrians have been the most enthusiastic adopters, Elena continued, pointing to a group of bird-like creatures floating through the station's corridors without mechanical assistance. Their ancient minds adapted to consciousness networking faster than we expected. They're already helping us design the next generation of dimensional gates. Through the window, they could see the fruits of that collaboration. Massive structures, hung in space like crystalline flowers, each one a gateway that could instantly connect any 2 points in the galaxy. The engineering required cooperation between human dimensional manipulation and Zephyrian spatial mathematics that had taken thousands of years to develop. What about the Kitharans? Dr. Kessatar asked. Commander Vexthul seemed resistant to change. Elena's expression grew thoughtful. Actually, he's become one of our most valuable partners. It turns out that warrior cultures adapt very well to enhanced consciousness. When you can share tactical awareness across an entire army in real time, traditional concepts of battlefield command become obsolete. She gestured, and the air filled with images of Kitharan soldiers working alongside human peacekeepers. They moved with perfect coordination, each individual aware of every other's position and intentions. Wars that might have lasted years were ending in days, not through superior firepower, but through tactical precision that made resistance pointless. The transformation goes deeper than technology, Elena said. We're seeing fundamental changes in how species relate to each other. When you can share consciousness with beings from completely different evolutionary backgrounds, old prejudices become impossible to maintain. Dr. Kessatar had experienced this firsthand. During her first consciousness-sharing session with a human researcher, she had felt what it was like to think with a brain shaped by millions of years of different evolutionary pressures. The experience had been profoundly humbling and enlightening, but not everyone is happy with the changes, she observed. Elena sighed. No, not everyone. The hegemony of Torval has declared human technology unnatural and forbidden their citizens from accepting our assistance. The rigid republic believes that consciousness enhancement will destroy individual identity. Several smaller species have chosen complete isolation rather than risk transformation. Do you blame them? How can we? Elena replied. 3 centuries ago, humanity made the same choice. We withdrew from galactic civilization because we were afraid of losing ourselves in something larger. We understand their fears because we've lived them. Through the dimensional window, they could see one of humanity's greatest achievements, the planet Earth itself, transformed beyond recognition. Continents floated freely in orbital shells around the planet's core, connected by streams of controlled energy that carried both matter and information. Cities existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Their populations expanded far beyond what the planet's surface could have supported. We learned something important during our isolation, Elena continued. Evolution doesn't have to mean losing what you were. It can mean becoming more of what you already are. Every species that chooses to work with us keeps their essential nature while transcending their limitations. As if to demonstrate her point, a group of Morvac engineers floated past the window. They still looked like the bulky, heavy-set creatures they had always been, but now they moved through space as easily as through atmosphere. Their natural engineering instincts had been enhanced rather than replaced, allowing them to design structures that combined Morvac durability with human dimensional manipulation. The Borgathi have been particularly interesting, Elena said, pointing to a section of the station where living rock creatures were growing new sections of the structure, directly from raw minerals. Their connection to geological processes has given them insights into planetary engineering that we never considered. They're helping us design worlds that exist across multiple dimensional layers. Dr. Kessatar marveled at the transformation. 6 months ago, these species had been scattered across the galaxy, separated by vast distances and limited by the physics they understood. Now they were collaborating on projects that would have been impossible for any single civilization to achieve. What happens next? She asked. Where does all this transformation lead? Elena's eyes took on a distant look, as if she was seeing possibilities that existed in dimensions beyond normal perception. We don't know, she admitted. That's what makes it exciting. For 3 centuries, humanity focused on transcending our limitations. We succeeded beyond our wildest dreams, but now we're discovering that transcendence is not a destination, it's a journey. She gestured toward the edge of the galaxy, where new expeditions were pushing into unexplored regions. We're encountering phenomena that challenge even our expanded understanding of reality. Civilizations that exist entirely as information, patterns, entities that treat time as a navigable dimension. Mysteries that require cooperation between dozens of enhanced species just to begin comprehending. The implications were staggering. If the galaxy contained wonders that even transcended humanity found challenging, what other impossibilities waited to be discovered? Are you concerned about going too far? Dr. Kessatar asked. About changing so much that you lose sight of your origins? Elena smiled, and for a moment her form flickered, showing glimpses of the human woman she had been before transformation and the multi-dimensional being she was becoming. We carry our origins with us, she said. Every enhancement, every transcendence, every leap into the impossible, it all builds on the foundation of what we were. She pointed to a section of the station where human children played with young Zephyrians, their laughter crossing species barriers as easily as it crossed dimensional boundaries. Those children will grow up in a galaxy where consciousness sharing is as natural as speech, where dimensional travel is as routine as walking. They'll face challenges we can't imagine and develop capabilities we can't predict. And that doesn't frighten you? It thrills us, Elena replied. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our adaptability. It was our refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable, any limitation permanent, any boundary absolute. We passed that gift to the galaxy, and now we're all discovering what becomes possible when entire civilizations decide that impossible is just another challenge to overcome. Through the dimensional window, they could see the first signs of, the next transformation already beginning. Ships were returning from the galactic edge carrying reports of phenomena that defied even expanded physics. New species were making contact, some of them existing in states that challenged the definition of life itself. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson humanity had to teach. Evolution never stops, transcendence has no limits, and the universe always has more wonders to reveal to those brave enough to reach for them. Dr. Kessatar looked out at the transformed cosmos and felt a familiar thrill of discovery. 3 centuries ago, humanity had gone silent to reinvent themselves. Now the entire galaxy was following their example, reaching for possibilities that previous generations had never dared to imagine. The age of limitations was ending. The age of infinite potential had begun.